Hey everyone, tonight we're setting sail on a different kind of journey. We're not going raiding, we're not going to battle under the banner of a great Jarl. We are going into business. We're venturing into a world where your sharpest weapon isn't your axe, but your wits, and where the greatest treasures are won not by conquest, but by careful calculation, endless hardship, and a profound understanding of the delicate art of the deal. Welcome to the life of a Viking merchant, where the risks were just as high as on the battlefield, but the rewards were measured in silver, silk, and the quiet satisfaction of surviving another perilous voyage. But make no mistake, this was no simple life of shopkeeping. It was a brutal, unforgiving, and often deadly profession. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, let your mind wander, and allow the gentle rhythm of my voice to lull you towards sleep. Maybe settle in, pull your blanket a little closer, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your life does not begin in a great hall, but perhaps on a small, windswept farm on the coast of Norway or in a bustling trading town like Hedeby in Denmark. You are not necessarily a man of high birth. While noblemen certainly engaged in trade, it was often a path for a second son, a man with no land to inherit, or any ambitious freeman with a sharp mind and a tolerance for immense risk. You learn your trade not in a school, but through a long and practical apprenticeship. As a boy, you help your father or an uncle mend the sails of his gnar, the workhorse of Viking trade. Unlike the sleek, narrow longship designed for speed and raiding, the gnar is a wider, deeper, and more robust vessel. It is a floating warehouse designed to carry a heavy cargo of goods across the treacherous waters of the North Sea and beyond. You learn the feel of wood, the smell of tar, and the heft of an axe. Your first lessons in commerce are simple. You learn the art of bartering. You might trade a few of your family's dried fish for a whetstone from a traveling merchant. You learn to weigh and measure using a small, portable set of bronze balance scales. The concept of money is still new and fluid. While you have seen the silver dirhams from the Abbasid Caliphate and the pennies from Anglo-Saxon England, much of your world still operates on the value of goods and the weight of precious metals. You learn to judge the quality of amber from the Baltic, to assess the thickness and warmth of a woolen cloak from Ireland, and to recognize the fine, lustrous fur of a pine marten, one of the most valuable commodities of your northern world. Your mind becomes a living ledger, constantly calculating the relative value of everything you see. When you are old enough, you join your first trading voyage. This is a momentous occasion, your true entry into the adult world. The preparation for the journey is a massive undertaking that involves the entire community. The gnar is prepared. Its hull is tarred to ensure it is watertight. The great, square sail, made of heavy, oiled wool, is patched and repaired. And then comes the loading of the cargo. This is your primary investment, the source of all your potential profit and all your risk. What do you trade? You are exporting the wealth of the North. Your cargo hold is filled with the things your cold, forested land produces in abundance. There are heavy, bundled furs, fox, beaver, and the aforementioned pine marten, highly prized in the wealthy cities of Europe for their warmth and as a symbol of status. There are blocks of walrus ivory, the white gold of the North, which will be carved into luxurious chess pieces and religious icons. There are barrels of dried cod and herring, a vital source of protein for inland communities. And perhaps, if your voyage is more morally ambiguous, your cargo also includes human beings. Thralls or slaves, captured in raids on the coasts of Ireland or the Slavic lands to the east. With the cargo loaded, you set sail. And this is where the first great hardship of your profession begins. A journey across the North Sea is not a pleasure cruise. The Nar, while sturdy, is an open boat. There is no comfortable cabin, no protection from the elements. You sleep on the deck, huddled amongst the barrels and bundles of your cargo, wrapped in a thick wool cloak. You are constantly cold, constantly damp from the sea spray and the frequent rain. The food is monotonous and meager. Hard, dry biscuit, salted fish, and water stored in leather skins that quickly takes on a foul, leathery taste. The work is relentless. You are part of a small crew, and you must constantly be at work. You take your turn at the steering or a massive, heavy piece of timber that requires all your strength to control in a rough sea. You constantly adjust the single great sail to catch the wind, hauling on the thick, abrasive ropes until your hands are raw. And in a calm, you must row, pulling on a heavy or for hours on end, a back-breaking, mind-numbing labor. But the greatest danger is the sea itself. The North Atlantic is a famously cruel and unpredictable body of water. A storm can appear on the horizon with terrifying speed, turning the gray sea into a churning cauldron of mountainous waves. Your small ship is tossed about like a piece of driftwood. Waves crash over the deck, threatening to swamp the boat. You and the other crew members work frantically, bailing out the icy water with wooden buckets, your bodies numb with cold and exhaustion, your minds filled with a cold, hard fear. You do not navigate with a compass or a modern chart. You navigate by skill, by experience, and by a deep, intimate knowledge of the natural world. You follow the coastline whenever possible. You read the position of the sun during the day and the North Star at night. You watch the flight of seabirds, knowing they can guide you towards land. You can even, it is said, release a raven from the boat and watch which direction it flies, a living compass pointing the way to the nearest shore. But even with all this skill, getting lost is a constant danger. A fog can descend, leaving you blind and disoriented, drifting for days until you either find a landmark or your food and water run out. Many ships simply sailed out into the gray expanse and were never seen again. Let's say you survive the journey. You arrive at your destination, perhaps a bustling port like Dorstad in Frisia or Jorvik, modern-day York, in England. Here, your work as a merchant truly begins. You must find a place in the crowded, noisy marketplace. You set up your stall and display your goods. Now, you must negotiate. This is a delicate art. You are dealing with people whose language you may only partially understand, whose customs are different, and who are just as eager to get the best deal as you are. You must be a shrewd judge of character, able to tell an honest merchant from a cheat. You use your portable balance scales to weigh the silver coins or hack silver, chopped up jewelry, that you are offered in payment. You must be vigilant against counterfeit coins or silver that has been diluted with less valuable metals. A single bad trade can wipe out the profits of an entire voyage. And the marketplace itself is a dangerous place. It is a crowded, chaotic hub filled with people from all over the known world. It is a place of opportunity, but also of thieves, of cut purses, and of violent disputes that can erupt in an instant. You must constantly guard your goods and your purse. While the Viking reputation as a fierce warrior might offer some protection, it can also make you a target. Perhaps your journey takes you not west, but east. You become a Varangian, one of the Swedish Vikings who traveled not across the open ocean, but down the great river systems of what is now Russia and Ukraine. Your Nar is too deep for these rivers. Instead, you use smaller, lighter boats that can be rowed or sailed. But the rivers have their own challenges. At several points, you must face great rapids. Here, you must unload your entire cargo and your boat and carry everything overland through the forest, a process known as portage. This is brutally hard labor, and it is here that you are most vulnerable to attack from local tribes like the Pecheneg, who see your rich cargo as an easy prize. If you survive the rapids and the ambushes, your journey takes you to the greatest, most magnificent city you could possibly imagine. Miklagard, the Great City, the Viking name for Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. For a man from a small Norwegian farm, the sight of Constantinople is overwhelming. Its massive walls, its golden-domed churches, its marble palaces, its markets filled with goods from all over the world. It is a vision from another reality. The Byzantine authorities are wary of you. They see you and your fellow Varangians as dangerous, uncivilized barbarians. You are not allowed to live freely in the city. You are confined to a specific quarter and must enter and leave the city in small, unarmed groups. But the trading opportunities are immense. Your northern furs, amber, and honey are in high demand. In return, you acquire goods of almost unimaginable luxury. Fine silks, intricate jewelry, spices from the Far East, and wine of a quality you have never tasted. And what of the slave trade? It is the darkest and most profitable aspect of your business. You might have captured your thralls in a raid yourself, or you might have bought them at a slave market in Hedeby. You see them not as human beings, but as triel, a form of livestock, a commodity to be bought and sold. You chain them together for the long journey, you feed them as little as possible, and you sell them in the great slave markets of the Islamic world, perhaps in Cordoba or along the Volga River, where the demand for European slaves is high. You sell them for a great deal of silver. This silver is the ultimate goal. It is what will allow you to buy land back home, to build a bigger ship, to attract a wife, and to become a man of status and power. The Viking world was built as much on the profits of this brutal human trade as it was on the blade of an axe. You finally return home after a journey that may have lasted for more than a year. You have survived the storms, the pirates, the rapids, and the treacherous markets. You are no longer the boy who left. You are a man, your face weathered by the sun and the sea, your mind filled with the sights of foreign lands. And you are wealthy. You have bags of silver dirhams and a chest full of exotic goods. You can now buy the land you desire, build a fine long house, and take your place as a respected member of your community. You have succeeded, but you are one of the lucky few. For every Viking merchant who returned rich, many others were lost at sea, killed by raiders, or cheated out of their fortune in a distant market. The life of a Viking trader was a constant, high-stakes gamble, a roll of the dice against the sea, the land, and the greed of other men. Let's delve deeper into the intricate social and legal fabric that underpinned your life as a Viking trader, because every transaction, every partnership, was governed by a complex web of trust, oaths, and the ever-present threat of violent retribution. Your business was often not a solo enterprise. Embarking on a long and dangerous trading voyage required significant capital, a sturdy ship, a full cargo, and provisions for the crew. It was rare for one man to finance this alone. More often, you would enter into a felag, a form of formal partnership or joint venture with other merchants. This was not a simple handshake deal. It was a solemn arrangement, bound by public oaths sworn over a sacred ring or a weapon. Each member of the felag would contribute a share of the capital. One man might provide the ship, another the cargo of furs, a third the silver for initial expenses. The profits, if any, would be divided according to these initial shares upon your return. This partnership was your lifeline. The men on your ship were not just your crew. They were your business partners. This created a powerful bond of mutual interest. If the voyage succeeded, everyone prospered. If it failed, everyone lost. But this system was also fraught with tension. Imagine the long, tedious weeks at sea, cooped up in a small, open boat with the same few men. Tempers fray. Disputes arise. Perhaps you feel that one of your partners is not pulling his weight at the oars, or is secretly consuming more than his fair share of the precious water rations. How are these disputes resolved? There is no formal court of law on the open ocean. The law is enforced by the ship's captain and by the collective will of the crew. A minor dispute might be settled with a harsh word or a fistfight on the deck. A more serious accusation, like theft from the shared cargo, could result in the accused being thrown overboard, a swift and brutal form of maritime justice. You learn to be a diplomat, a negotiator, and a patient observer of human nature, because maintaining the fragile peace of the Felig is just as important as navigating the ship. The legal complexities did not end when you reached a foreign port. In a great trading hub like Jorvik or Dublin, you would often deal with merchants under the protection of a local king or jarl. Trade was conducted in designated market areas, and there were strict rules. Local officials would collect tolls and taxes on your goods. There were standardized weights and measures that you had to use, and to be caught using false scales was a serious crime, one that could result in a heavy fine or the confiscation of all your goods. If a dispute arose with a local merchant, you could not simply resolve it with your axe. You would have to appeal to the local law court. This meant you needed a basic understanding of Anglo-Saxon or Irish law, or you needed to hire a local law speaker to argue your case. It was a world where a quick wit and a knowledge of legal loopholes could be more valuable than a sharp sword. Let's consider the nature of your money. While silver coins were used, the Viking economy was largely based on the weight and purity of the metal. You carried your wealth in a leather pouch, a collection of coins from all over the known world, Arab dirhams, Byzantine solidi, Frankish deniers, mixed with hack silver, which was simply chopped up bracelets, rings, and other pieces of silver jewelry. When you made a purchase, you would place the item on one side of your small bronze scales and add pieces of silver to the other until the scales balanced. This required a constant, expert evaluation of the silver itself. Was this dirham pure, or was it a clever forgery made of plated copper? You learned to test the metal, perhaps by biting it to feel its softness, or by making a small nick in the edge to see the color beneath. Every single transaction was a test of your knowledge and your vigilance. And then there was the ever-present danger of violence. The line between a Viking trader and a Viking raider was, to put it mildly, exceptionally thin. In fact, it was often the same person. A voyage might begin with peaceful trade. You sail to a town, you set up your stall, you barter your goods. But if you sense weakness, if you see that a town is poorly defended or that a nearby monastery is filled with gold and has no warriors to protect it, the mission could change very quickly. The oarsmen become warriors. The merchants become raiders. The axe you used to chop wood for the campfire is now used to break down a church door. This duality was the essence of the Viking Age. It was a pragmatic and opportunistic approach to the world. If you could get what you wanted through peaceful trade, that was the easier path. But if a little strand hog, or coastal raiding, could fill your ship with treasure more quickly, then that was simply a more efficient form of commerce. This reputation, of course, preceded you. When your ship appeared on the horizon, the people on the shore had to make a very quick calculation. Are these men here to trade, or are they here to burn our village to the ground? This often made for tense initial negotiations. Finally, after months or even years away, you return home. Your arrival is a moment of great celebration for your family and your village. You are a man who has seen the world and returned with its treasures. You unload your cargo, the fine English wool, the French wine, the Byzantine silks. But your most important cargo is the silver. Now comes the final, crucial step of the Felig, the division of the profits. The partners gather. The silver is weighed and meticulously divided according to the shares agreed upon at the start of the voyage. This is a moment of great tension. An argument over the division of the spoils could easily lead to a blood feud that could tear a community apart for generations. But if all goes well, you walk away with your share, a heavy bag of silver that represents years of hardship, risk, and toil. You have proven yourself. You have brought wealth and honor to your family. You are a successful Viking trader, a master of both the sea and the deal, a survivor of one of the most dangerous professions in the medieval world. Your world is forged in iron and terror. You are a scribe in the Neo-Assyrian Empire in the 8th century BC, serving under a king whose very name is a prayer to the god of war, a ruler like Tiglath-Pileser III or Sargon II. Your empire is the most dominant military power the world has ever seen, a brutal and ruthlessly efficient machine that stretches from the mountains of Iran to the shores of the Mediterranean. The foundation of this empire is not just its powerful army, but its sophisticated bureaucracy and its mastery of psychological warfare. And you are a key part of this machine. Your job is not to fight, but to count. After a great battle, as the dust settles and the groans of the dying begin to fade, you are sent out onto the field with your clay tablet and your sharp stylus. Your task is to conduct a grim and meticulous audit of the slaughter, to create a permanent, numerical record of your king's overwhelming victory. This is not simple bookkeeping. It is an act of state-sponsored terror, a mathematical testament to the terrifying consequences of defying the might of Assyria. Before you step onto the battlefield, let's understand the Assyrian philosophy of warfare. For the Assyrians, war was not just a political tool. It was a sacred duty, a divine command from their chief god, Ashur. The king was Ashur's earthly representative, and his campaigns were seen as the execution of Ashur's will. Conquered lands were not just added to the empire. They were brought into the land of Ashur. Therefore, any enemy who resisted was not just a political opponent. They were a sinner, a heretic defying a divine mandate. And their punishment had to be not just a defeat, but a complete and horrifying subjugation, a lesson so terrible it would be remembered for generations. This belief system justified a level of organized brutality that was unprecedented. The Assyrians were masters of terror, and they used it as a deliberate state policy to control their vast and often rebellious empire. Their art, their royal inscriptions, and your work as a scribe were all designed to broadcast this message of ruthless power. The battle is over. Your army has won a decisive victory against a rebellious coalition of Syrian city-states. The air is thick with the smell of blood, dust, and death. You, the scribe, are part of a procession that moves onto the field. You are accompanied by high-ranking military officials and by guards to protect you from any wounded enemies who might still be capable of fighting back. You are not a warrior, and you feel a profound sense of vulnerability in this landscape of carnage. Your fine linen robes seem terribly out of place amidst the mud, the gore, and the heaps of broken bodies. You carry your tools, a small, damp clay tablet, a sharp reed or bone stylus, and a small bag of water to keep the clay moist. Your first task is the official body count. But the Assyrians do not simply count bodies. It is too easy for a soldier to inflate the numbers, to claim a kill where there was none. The count must be verified with physical proof. And the standard form of proof is the severed head. You stand beside a high-ranking officer as the Assyrian soldiers, their bronze helmets and iron swords caked with blood, begin the gruesome work of collection. They move through the battlefield, identifying the enemy dead, and with a swift cut of their daggers, they sever the heads from the bodies. They bring these bloody trophies to you and the other scribes. A soldier steps forward, his face grimly triumphant, and throws a severed head at your feet. It lands with a soft, wet thud. You try not to flinch. You are a bureaucrat, a man of numbers, and you must maintain your composure. Your job is to make a tally. For each head that is presented, you make a single, precise wedge-shaped mark on your clay tablet. A line of soldiers forms, each one bringing their proof of victory. The pile of heads at your feet grows into a small, grotesque mound. The smell is overwhelming. You count 1, 10, 50, 100. The cuneiform marks on your tablet grow into a long, neat column, a sterile and abstract representation of the carnage around you. This is the first layer of the accounting. But the counting is not finished. After all the heads have been tallied, they are collected and used for the next stage of the terror campaign. The heads are piled into great, gruesome pyramids at the gates of the conquered city. This is a powerful, visceral statement. It is a message to the survivors within the city and to any neighboring kingdoms who might be thinking of rebellion. It says, "This is your fate. This is the price of defiance. We have not just defeated your army. We have dismantled it, piece by piece." Sometimes the heads of the enemy commanders or nobles are treated with special care. They might be flayed, their faces peeled away, before being added to the pile, an extra layer of desecration. The counting continues with other body parts. For a more detailed audit, or if the battlefield is too chaotic to collect all the heads, soldiers might be instructed to bring back severed hands or feet. A pile of right hands might be tallied separately from a pile of left hands to ensure an accurate count. You, the scribe, continue your grim work, your stylus flying across the clay, your mind focused on the numbers, a desperate attempt to create order out of the chaos. You might also be tasked with counting the spoils of war, the number of captured chariots, the shields, the spears, the bows. Every piece of enemy equipment is a resource to be repurposed for the Assyrian war machine. But the most important count after the dead is the living. You must record the number of prisoners. These are not just random soldiers. They are a valuable resource. The Assyrian Empire was built on the labor of deported populations. After a city was conquered, a large portion of its surviving inhabitants would be forcibly marched to another corner of the empire. This policy of mass deportation was designed to break the will of rebellious peoples, to destroy their sense of identity, and to provide the labor needed for the empire's massive construction projects. You count the long, shuffling lines of prisoners, the men, the women, the children, their faces blank with shock and despair. Your tablet records their numbers, their professions if they can be determined. A skilled craftsman was more valuable than a farmer, and their destination. You are an agent of human trafficking on an industrial scale. The leaders of the rebellion are singled out for special treatment. Their punishment must be particularly horrifying to serve as an example. You are there to record it. You watch as the enemy king or chieftain is brought before your victorious king. You might see him flayed alive, his skin peeled from his body in long strips. You might see him impaled on a sharpened stake, left to die slowly in front of his own city gates. You might see him blinded with a hot poker. One particularly cruel punishment was to force a captured king to wear the severed head of one of his own nobles on a chain around his neck while being held in a cage. Your job is to record these events dispassionately, to create the official, state-sanctioned narrative of this victory. Your inscriptions will later be carved onto the stone walls of the royal palace in Nineveh, a permanent and public record of Assyrian might and Assyrian fury. The reliefs will show your king, powerful and serene, and the enemy, groveling and defeated. Your text will state, I, Sargon, king of the world, destroyed the city of X. I killed Y number of their fighting men. I took Z number of their people captive. Your dry, bureaucratic numbers are the final stamp of imperial power on a scene of utter devastation. When your work on the battlefield is finally done, you return to the camp, your clay tablets filled with the grim arithmetic of war. You are clean, while the soldiers around you are covered in the blood and grime of battle. But in your own way, you are just as much a part of the machine of death as they are. You have not wielded a sword, but you have wielded the power of the written word, the power of the official count. You have transformed a chaotic, brutal slaughter into a neat, orderly set of statistics. You have created the data that will justify the war, that will be read aloud in the temples to praise the god Ashur, and that will be used to terrify future generations into submission. As you prepare a fresh clay tablet for the next day's accounting, the counting of captured livestock and grain, you are haunted not by the sight of the dead, but by the sheer, overwhelming, and orderly scale of the violence you have just recorded. You are a scribe of the Assyrian Empire, and you have learned that the most powerful weapon of all is not the sword, but the tally mark. Your duties extend beyond the immediate aftermath of the battle. Once the grim accounting is complete, you return to the relative order of the main camp, your precious clay tablets carefully stored in a leather satchel. These tablets are not mere tallies. They are vital state documents. In the command tent, under the flickering light of an oil lamp, your work continues. You must now process this raw data, transforming the brutal reality of the battlefield into the clean, orderly language of imperial administration. You take a fresh, larger clay tablet, the kind used for official reports. Your stylus moves with a different rhythm now, not the quick jabs of counting, but the slower, more deliberate strokes of formal cuneiform script. You are composing the after-action report for the provincial governor, and ultimately, for the royal archives in Nineveh. You begin with the date and the location of the battle. Then you detail the enemy coalition, listing the rebellious kings and city-states. Then come the numbers, the cold, hard facts you spent the day collecting. You inscribe the total number of enemy soldiers slain, citing the piles of heads as your verifiable source. You list the number of high-ranking commanders killed, their names recorded if they could be identified. You detail the vast quantities of captured equipment, 200 chariots, 650 horses, 1,200 shields, 2,500 bows. Each number is a testament to the systematic stripping of the enemy's ability to ever wage war again. You then record the number of prisoners taken, often broken down by gender and age, men for labor, women and children to be assimilated or serve as slaves. Finally, you document the tribute now imposed upon the conquered land, a crushing annual payment of gold, silver, horses, and grain, a debt that will keep this region impoverished and subservient for generations. This tablet is the final weapon of the battle, a document that formalizes the subjugation of an entire people. This process highlights the chillingly bureaucratic nature of Assyrian brutality. Your empire is not just violent, it is meticulously organized. The deportations you recorded are not a chaotic rampage. They are a planned logistical operation. You see other scribes at work, creating lists of the displaced families, assigning them to different destinations across the vast empire. They are sent to build new cities, to farm land in underpopulated areas, or to work on the colossal construction of the king's new palace. The goal is to shatter their collective identity, to mix them with other conquered peoples until their old allegiances are forgotten, replaced only by a shared identity as subjects of Assyria. You are not just counting heads. You are an administrator of cultural genocide, your stylus a tool for erasing nations from the map. And what becomes of your tablets? They are carefully dried and then fired in a kiln, making them as hard as stone, ensuring their permanence. They are then packed in straw and sent by royal courier back to the capital. There, in the great libraries of Ashurbanipal, they will be archived, stored alongside tens of thousands of other tablets recording everything from astronomical observations to commercial contracts. Your report from a bloody field in Syria will become a single data point in the vast, terrifying database of the Assyrian state. It will be used by future kings to study military tactics, by governors to calculate the resources of a province, and by royal artists as the source material for the great stone reliefs that will decorate the palace walls. Years later, you might walk through the newly finished halls of the palace at Nineveh and see your work transformed into art. You will see a magnificent alabaster carving depicting the very battle you documented. You will see the Assyrian chariots, a blur of motion, trampling the bodies of the enemy. You will see the archers, their bows drawn taut. You will see the enemy soldiers, their faces contorted in agony as Assyrian spears pierce their chests. And in one corner of the great relief, you will see a small, humble figure, standing off to the side, holding a stylus and a tablet, his face impassive. You will see yourself. The artist has included you, the scribe, as a symbol of the empire's order and intellectual control. You are the man who turns the chaos of war into a tidy report, who gives the slaughter a veneer of bureaucratic legitimacy. Looking at this cold, magnificent stone, you are reminded that your role in this great, terrifying empire is to be the memory of its cruelty, the quiet, meticulous accountant of its sins. Imagine yourself not in a grand, modern theater with velvet seats and sophisticated lighting, but on a rough wooden stage in the muddy courtyard of a medieval inn. The year is sometime in the 15th century, somewhere in England. The air smells of wood smoke, wet wool, and cheap ale. Your audience is a noisy, restless, and often drunk mix of local farmers, traveling merchants, and a few surly-looking soldiers. You are a traveling player, an actor in a small, itinerant troupe, and your job is to capture the attention of this rowdy crowd with nothing but your voice, your body, and a secret, silent language understood by every actor on the stage. This is the world of medieval stagecraft, where grand emotions and complex ideas had to be conveyed through a system of bold, almost cartoonish gestures, a form of physical storytelling that was as important as the spoken word itself. Your theater is not a building. It is a portable stage, a simple platform on trestles, perhaps with a curtain at the back. Your plays are not the subtle psychological dramas of a later age. They are morality plays, raw and powerful allegories designed to teach the illiterate masses the great lessons of the Christian faith. The characters are not complex individuals, but broad archetypes. Everyman, good deeds, fellowship, and the terrifying, skeletal figure of death. Or perhaps you perform a mystery play, a dramatic retelling of a Bible story, like the Nativity or the Passion of Christ. The language of these plays is beautiful and poetic, but you know that many in your audience will not catch every word. Their attention will wander. Your job is to hold them, and you do it with your body. Medieval acting was a profoundly physical art form. In the absence of modern lighting and sound amplification, everything had to be bigger, broader, more explicit. Your gestures were a form of sign language, a codified system of postures and movements that conveyed specific emotions and ideas to the audience. Let's say you are playing the character of pride. You do not simply say your lines with an arrogant tone. You embody pride. You stand with your chest puffed out, your head thrown back, one hand placed firmly on your hip in a gesture known as the akimbo. This posture, aggressive and space-consuming, is an instant, universal signal of arrogance and authority. You walk with a slow, swaggering gait, your chin held high, looking down your nose at the other actors and the audience. Every movement screams, "I am better than you." Now imagine you are playing humility. Your entire physicality reverses. You shrink your body, hunching your shoulders and bowing your head. Your hands are clasped meekly before you, your eyes are downcast, never daring to make direct eye contact with those of higher status. You move with small, shuffling steps, always seeming to apologize for the very space you occupy. The contrast between these two physical performances is immediate and obvious. Even a viewer who doesn't understand a word of the dialogue can instantly tell the difference between the virtuous and the sinful, the proud and the meek. This gestural language was incredibly detailed. A specific emotion was not just a facial expression. It was a full-body posture. To indicate grief, you would not just look sad. You would perform grief. You would wring your hands, you would strike your breast with your fist, a gesture known as the planctus, a ritualized expression of sorrow. You might cover your face with your cloak or turn your back to the audience, your shoulders shaking with silent, performative sobs. To show anger, you would stamp your foot, you would clench your fists, your body tense and rigid. You might make a gesture of tearing at your own hair or beard, a sign of uncontrollable rage. To express love or devotion, you would place your hand over your heart, your gaze lifted towards the object of your affection, be it a maiden or god. These were not subtle, naturalistic gestures. They were a form of human hieroglyphics, bold and easily readable from the back of a noisy courtyard. This system of gestures was not just for the actors. It was a shared language with the audience, who were already familiar with this visual vocabulary from another, even more powerful form of theater: the church. The poses and gestures you use on stage are the same ones they see every Sunday in the stained glass windows, the carved wooden reliefs, and the illuminated manuscripts of their local church. They see the images of saints with their hands clasped in prayer, of martyrs with their eyes turned towards heaven in pious suffering, of demons with their claws outstretched in malice. The gestures of a medieval priest during the Mass were themselves a form of ritualized drama, each movement carrying a specific symbolic weight. When you, the actor, strike a pose on your humble stage, you are tapping into this deep, shared well of visual and religious symbolism. You are not just acting. You are bringing a living, breathing stained glass window to life. But there was another, more secret layer of communication happening on stage, a silent dialogue between the actors themselves. A professional troupe like yours might perform dozens of different plays from its repertoire. Memorizing every single line of every play was a monumental task, especially when new plays were constantly being written and added. While you were expected to know your part, lapses in memory were inevitable. This is where a secret language of hand signals came into play, a way for actors to cue each other without the audience noticing. This was the art of compassing, pointing, or giving the cue. If an actor forgot his next line, he might make a subtle, almost invisible gesture with his hand, perhaps a slight flick of the wrist or a specific movement of his fingers, signaling the actor next to him or the book holder, a man backstage who held the single, precious manuscript of the play, to feed him the line. Or, if an actor was delivering his lines too quickly, another actor might subtly hold up a hand, palm outward, a silent signal to slow down. If someone was speaking too softly, a hand cupped to the ear could mean louder. This was a hidden choreography, a silent conversation happening in plain sight, completely invisible to the audience but essential for the smooth running of the performance. It was a mark of a truly professional troupe that they could navigate these small crises seamlessly, their secret signals as well rehearsed as their spoken lines. Furthermore, these signals could be used to adapt the performance on the fly. Your audience is not a quiet, polite group of theatergoers. They are an active, vocal, and often drunk participant in the drama. They will cheer for the hero, they will boo and hiss at the villain, and they will throw things if they get bored. A good actor had to be able to read the crowd and adjust his performance accordingly. If a particular joke is landing well, the lead actor might give a subtle signal to his partner to elaborate, to draw out the comedic routine, to milk the moment for all it's worth. If a long, moralizing speech is causing the crowd to grow restless, a quick, cutting gesture could signal to the other actor to skip ahead to the next bit of action. This made every performance a unique, living thing, a dynamic interplay between the actors and the audience, orchestrated by a silent language of hands. The life of a traveling player was one of constant hardship and precarious status. You were always on the road, moving from one town to the next, your stage and your props packed into a small cart. You were often viewed with suspicion by local authorities. Actors were considered a vagrant, untrustworthy class, barely a step above beggars and thieves. The church, while it used drama for its own purposes in the mystery plays, often condemned secular theater as a source of sin and moral corruption. And yet, you were also a welcome diversion, a source of entertainment and wonder in the hard, monotonous lives of the common people. As you take your final bow on your rickety stage, the applause of the crowd, a rough but genuine sound, is your only true reward. Your partner passes a hat, and a few small coins are collected. It is enough for a hot meal at the inn and a straw pallet to sleep on in the stable. As you settle down for the night, the words and the gestures of the play still swirling in your head, you are already thinking about tomorrow. The next town, the next muddy courtyard, the next noisy crowd. You are a keeper of stories, a painter of emotions in the air. And your most important tool is not the script, but the secret, silent, and powerful language of your own two hands. Let's delve deeper into the precarious world you inhabit, a world that exists on the fringes of acceptable society. Your life as a traveling player is a constant exercise in adaptation, not just on stage, but off it. When your troupe arrives in a new town, your first task is not to find a good spot for your stage, but to find the local authorities and seek their permission. You must approach the town reeve or the local lord with a display of utmost humility, hat in hand. You present your letters of patent, if you are lucky enough to be under the official protection of a distant, powerful noble. This letter is your most precious document, a shield against accusations of vagrancy. It declares that you are not just a masterless wanderer, but a servant of Lord so-and-so, traveling for his amusement. This may or may not be true. The letter could be an old one, the noble long dead, or it could be an outright forgery, purchased from a scribe in a larger city. It is a gamble, but a necessary one. If permission is granted, it often comes with a heavy fee, a tax on your potential earnings. You might also be required to perform a private show for the local lord and his family in their hall before you are allowed to perform for the common folk in the marketplace. This is a nerve-wracking experience. The audience is small, silent, and far more critical than the rowdy crowd in the courtyard. Your body, slapstick jokes that work so well on the peasants often fall flat in the face of stony-faced nobility. You must tailor your performance, perhaps emphasizing the moral lesson of the play over the crude humor. A good performance might earn you a bonus payment and, more importantly, the Lord's protection for the duration of your stay. A bad one could see you run out of town with no earnings at all. Your relationship with the local church is even more complex. On the one hand, The church is the source of your best material. The Bible stories you dramatize are the most powerful and resonant tales you can tell. But the clergy themselves are deeply suspicious of you. They see you as a source of potential heresy and moral corruption. You are luring people away from work and prayer with your frivolous entertainments. A local priest might preach a sermon against the evils of the theater on the very day you are trying to perform. To counteract this, you must be a diplomat. You make a point of attending Mass on Sunday, of making a small donation to the church from your meager earnings, and of ensuring that the moral of your plays is always loud, clear, and perfectly orthodox. You are walking a fine line, using the church's stories to make a living while trying to avoid its condemnation. And what of the actors themselves? Your troupe is a small, insular family, bound together by shared hardship and the road. You travel together, you eat together, you sleep in the same flea-ridden inns or stables. The roles within the troupe are often specialized. There is the lead actor, usually the owner of the company, who plays the most heroic or virtuous parts, like God or a noble king. There is the clown, a man skilled in physical comedy and improvisation, who plays the devils, the fools, and the drunken characters, and who often has a direct, back-and-forth relationship with the audience. And there are the younger boys, the apprentices. In the medieval English theater, all female roles were played by men and boys. It was considered deeply improper for a woman to appear on a public stage. So, the role of the Virgin Mary, of Mary Magdalene, or of the foolish noblewoman falls to one of the young apprentices in your troupe. A boy with a high, unbroken voice and a delicate frame is a valuable asset. He is trained from a young age to mimic the movements, the voice, and the gestures of a woman. This is another layer of the artifice of your profession. You, a grizzled man playing the role of a devout knight, must profess your undying love to a character you know to be a teenage boy named Thomas who is still learning to control his cracking voice. The costumes and props you use are a testament to your resourcefulness. Your crown is a band of tin, your royal robe, a discarded velvet curtain you bought for a few pennies. The terrifying mask for the character of death might be a real animal skull, boiled clean and mounted on a stick. The blood used in a scene depicting a martyrdom is likely just animal blood obtained from a friendly butcher, or a simple mixture of red dye and water, concealed in a small bag that can be pricked at the appropriate moment. Your entire world is an exercise in creating illusion from the mundane, in turning scraps and rubbish into the stuff of high drama. As the play reaches its climax, with good deeds triumphing over vice, and the audience cheering, you feel a surge of pride. For a brief, shining moment, in this muddy courtyard, you are not just a poor, traveling player. You are a magician, a weaver of tales, a teacher, and a vital part of the cultural life of a world that both needs you and scorns you. The night is alive. You are standing waist-deep in the warm, placid waters of a sheltered bay on the coast of ancient Hawaii. The moon, a great, silver platter in the tropical sky, casts a shimmering path across the water, so bright it feels like you could walk upon it. The air is thick with the scent of salt water, of night-blooming flowers, and of the damp earth. You are not a king, a Alii Nui, nor a high priest, a Kahuna Nui. You are a commoner, a Makanana, but tonight you are participating in an act of creation that is as sacred as any temple rite. You are part of a great human chain, passing stones from the mountainside to the sea, building a wall that will enclose a portion of the bay and create a loko ia, a royal fish pond. And you are doing it by the light of the full moon, for this is not just a construction project. It is a sacred, communal act, a testament to a society that did not just live off the land, but actively cultivated the sea itself. To understand the genius of the Hawaiian fish pond, you must first understand the concept of a hupua. This was the fundamental unit of land division in ancient Hawaii, a wedge-shaped slice of an island that typically ran from the mountains, the Mauka, all the way down to the sea, the Makai. This system gave each community access to all the resources it needed to be self-sufficient. Timber and bird feathers from the mountain forests, fertile land for growing taro and sweet potatoes in the valleys, and the bounty of the ocean along the coast. The Ahupua was a masterpiece of sustainable resource management, a system that recognized the deep, interconnected relationship between the land, the sea, and the people. And the fish pond was the ultimate expression of this philosophy. It was a form of aquaculture so sophisticated that it allowed Hawaiians to manage and harvest fish with the same care and foresight they used to cultivate their taro patches. It was, in essence, farming the ocean. There were many types of fish ponds, but the ones you are building tonight, the Loko Kwapa, were the most impressive. These were massive coastal ponds, formed by building a great stone seawall, the Kwapa, across the mouth of a shallow bay or inlet. These walls could be enormous, sometimes over a mile long and several feet thick, a monumental feat of engineering constructed without mortar or modern equipment. And the most remarkable part of this construction was the way it was done. A project of this magnitude was not undertaken by a small group of laborers. It required the mobilization of the entire community, sometimes thousands of people, working together in a great coordinated effort. And often this work was done at night, specifically during the full moon. There were practical reasons for this. The tides are more predictable, and the moonlight is bright enough to work by, offering a respite from the scorching heat of the tropical sun. But the reasons were also deeply spiritual. The night, and particularly the full moon, was a time of great mana or spiritual power. To build a fish pond, a place that would provide sustenance for the entire community and the chief, was a sacred act, and it was best performed during a time of heightened spiritual energy. The process begins weeks in advance. The kahuna, the priests and master craftsmen who are experts in this field, survey the coastline. They choose the perfect location, a place with a gentle current, a shallow bay, and access to fresh water from a mountain stream, which is crucial for the pond's ecosystem. Once the site is chosen and the proper rituals have been performed to ask for the blessing of the gods, Ku, the god of war and building, and Kanaloa, the god of the ocean, the work begins. The call goes out across the Ahupua. The Alii, the chief, has commanded that a great pond be built. Every able-bodied man, woman, and child is expected to participate. This is not slave labor. It is a form of communal tax, a shared effort for the good of all, a practice known as laulima. And so, on the night of the full moon, you find your place in the great human chain. The chain starts high up on the mountainside, where other villagers are gathering volcanic stones, weathered and rounded by time. The stones are then passed from hand to hand, down the slope, through the taro fields and the groves of breadfruit trees, all the way to the shoreline. You are standing in the middle of this chain, your feet planted firmly in the soft sand. A stone is passed to you. It is heavy, still warm from the day's sun. You take it, turn, and pass it to the person next to you. And so it goes, a constant rhythmic flow of rock from the mountain to the sea. The only sounds are the grunts of exertion, the low murmur of conversation, and the soft splash of the water. There is a sense of shared purpose, of community, that is almost palpable in the moonlit air. You are not just passing stones. You are weaving a bond between the people of your land. Out in the bay, the master builders, the kilo, are at work. They stand waist-deep in the water, directing the placement of the stones. They are building the wall, the quappa, with incredible skill. They do not use mortar. They rely on a technique of careful fitting and the sheer weight of the stones to create a structure that is strong enough to withstand the power of the ocean waves. The largest stones form the foundation, and the smaller stones are used to fill in the gaps. It is like building a massive three-dimensional puzzle in the dark. The true genius of the wall, however, is not its size, but its gates. Built into the seawall at strategic locations are one or more sluice gates, the makaha. These are not simple openings, but intricate grates made of lashed timbers, usually hibiscus wood. The gaps in the grate are wide enough to allow small, young fish from the ocean to swim into the pond, attracted by the nutrient-rich environment created by the fresh water and algae within. But the gaps are too narrow for the larger, mature fish to escape. The makaha is a one-way door, a masterpiece of passive aquaculture. It allows the pond to be naturally stocked with a constant supply of young fish from the open ocean, which then grow fat and plump in the safe, rich waters of the pond. It is a self-sustaining system, a fish trap that never needs to be baited. The work continues for hours, perhaps for several nights in a row, until the Great Wall is complete. It is a moment of immense communal pride. A great feast is held, with roasted pig, taro, and sweet potatoes, a reward from the chief for the community's hard work. But your job is not over. The pond must now be managed. A kai loko, a pond keeper, is appointed. His job is to be the guardian of this precious resource. He lives in a small hut beside the pond, and his life becomes intimately tied to its rhythms. He maintains the wall, repairing any damage from storms. He keeps the makaha clear of debris, and most importantly, he cultivates the pond's ecosystem. He encourages the growth of specific types of algae, the primary food for the herbivorous fish like mullet, aini, and milkfish, awa. He might even build smaller internal walls to create specialized habitats for different species. He is a master of his environment, a true marine farmer, and he knows when to harvest. The harvest is not a free-for-all. It is a carefully controlled event, dictated by the seasons and the needs of the chief and the community. When the time is right, a net is placed on the ocean side of the makaha. The fish, sensing the incoming tide, will instinctively swim towards the gate, trying to get out to the open sea, and they are caught in the net. The harvest is then presented to the alii, the chief. The best and largest fish are for him and his court. A portion is given to the kahuna as an offering to the gods, and the rest is distributed among the common people, the makanana, who help to build and maintain the pond. The system ensures that everyone, from the highest chief to the lowliest farmer, benefits from this shared resource. It is a perfect expression of the Hawaiian concept of living in balance with nature and with one another. As a child, you might have played in the shallows of the pond, learning to identify the different types of fish. You would have seen the pond keeper making his daily rounds, a figure of quiet authority and deep knowledge. And you would have understood, from a young age, that this body of water was not just a place to swim. It was a sacred larder, a symbol of your chief's power and his responsibility to provide for his people. The fish ponds of Hawaii were a triumph of sustainable engineering and social cooperation. At their peak, there were hundreds of these ponds across the islands, producing millions of pounds of fish a year, supporting a large and thriving population. They were a testament to a people who did not see a separation between the land and the sea, but who understood them as a single, integrated system to be cared for, to be respected, and to be shared. And as you stand in the warm, moonlit water, passing another heavy stone to your neighbor, you feel a deep sense of connection. You are a part of something larger than yourself, a single hand in a great chain that is building not just a wall, but a future for your people. The completion of the Loco Ia wall is not the end of the spiritual process, but the beginning of a new phase of it. The pond is now a living entity, a sacred space that must be properly initiated. Before it can be stocked, the kahuna performs another series of important rituals. He might consecrate the pond by walking its perimeter, chanting prayers to the gods and sprinkling blessed water to purify it from any negative influences. He will also perform a ceremony to formally dedicate the pond to the Alii and to the guardian spirits, the Omqua, of the local land and people. These are ancestral spirits, often taking the form of animals like sharks, owls, or turtles, who are believed to watch over and protect their descendants. A specific mu, a supernatural lizard or dragon spirit, might be designated as the pond's guardian. Offerings would be made to this mu, asking it to ensure the pond's fertility and to protect it from harm. The management of the pond is a science passed down through generations. The Kai Loco, the pond keeper, is a man of immense practical and spiritual knowledge. He understands the subtle interplay of fresh and salt water, knowing exactly how much fresh water from the mountain stream needs to be let in to control the pond's salinity. This brackish water is the key to cultivating the perfect types of algae, the pasture of the sea. The keeper can identify dozens of different kinds of limu, or seaweed, knowing which ones are the favorite food of the mullet, ani, and the milkfish, awa, the two primary species farmed in the ponds. He actively weeds out undesirable algae and encourages the growth of the beneficial kinds, much like a farmer tending his fields. He is, in essence, a master of marine botany. He also understands the behavior of the fish. He knows their spawning cycles, their feeding habits, and their natural movements. He knows that by observing the behavior of the fish near the makaha, the sluice gate, he can predict changes in the weather or the tides. His job requires a constant, intimate connection with his environment. He walks the great stone wall every day, not just looking for damage, but reading the story of the water. He can tell by the color of the pond if the algae are healthy. He can tell by the movement of the surface ripples where the schools of fish are congregating. The social implications of the fish pond are just as profound as the engineering. The pond is a physical manifestation of the chief's power and his responsibility. It is a symbol of his ability to command the labor of his people and to provide for them. The abundance of the pond is a direct reflection of the chief's mana. A well-stocked, productive pond shows that he is in good standing with the gods and that his rule is just and prosperous. A failing pond, one that is barren or damaged, would be seen as a terrible omen, a sign that the chief has lost his divine favor. The regular distribution of the fish harvested from the pond is a key way that the Alii maintains the loyalty and well-being of his subjects, the Makanana. This act of sharing reinforces the social contract. The people provide labor and loyalty, and the chief, in return, provides sustenance and protection. The pond also acts as a great communal refrigerator. In a tropical climate without any means of long-term preservation like salting or smoking, keeping a large supply of fresh food was a constant challenge. The Loco Ia solved this problem magnificently. It was a living larder, a place where hundreds or even thousands of pounds of fish could be kept alive and fresh until they were needed. When the chief decided to hold a great feast, or a haina, to celebrate a victory or a royal birth, he could simply order a harvest from the pond, guaranteeing a supply of fresh, high-quality fish for his guests. This ability to provide for large numbers of people at a moment's notice was a crucial element of political power and social cohesion. It cemented the chief's status and ensured the happiness of his people. The moonlight that guided your hands as you passed the stones was not just illuminating a construction project. It was illuminating the very foundation of your society.